Chapter 42. The River. "Thou shalt come with your mamma, Esmeralda," Queen Ethelderda yelled as she pulled Jenna into a small unlit tunnel just off the labyrinth. "Thou shalt come with her, for we have a much-delayed trip to take, do we not?" With the Aye-Aye's tail curled so tightly round her neck that she barely had breath enough to walk, Jenna could not escape Ethelderda's grip. She was being dragged deeper and deeper into the darkness of the tunnel. The floor beneath Jenna's feet was slippery, and a cold wind blew up through the tunnel, carrying with it the dank smell of river water. The combination of Ethelderda's potion-powered strength and the downward slope of the passage, which was covered in a thin coating of ice, meant that Jenna was almost skating along in Ethelderda's wake. The darkness did not seem to bother Ethelderda. The queen knew her way, for it was a route she often took to check up on her son, and she sped along the tunnel like a speed skater on a mission. After what felt like a lifetime but was no more than 15 minutes, Jenna thought she could see pale moonlight, or was it the beginnings of dawn, shining on the icy tunnel floor, and beyond that the blackness of the river. A few moments later, she, Ethelderda, and the Aye-Aye were out in the open air, on a small landing platform a few hundred yards upriver from the south gate. The river swept by in front of them, swift, dark, and freezing cold. Jenna pulled back from the water. The landing stage was icy, and she knew it would take only a moment for Ethelderda to push her in. "Thou art safe for now, Esmeralda," hissed the queen, keeping her grip on Jenna tight. "I wouldst not have some footman find thee a-bobbing by the palace on the outflow of the tide this morn. Besides, I wish to show thee one of the wonders of our land, the bottomless whirlpool of Bleak Creek. I shall call our barge, and we shall make haste forthwith, for your mamma is not so cruel as to make thee tarry here a moment longer when such delight awaits." With that, Queen Ethelderda drew out a golden whistle from a pocket deep in her rustling silk skins, and blew 3 short, shrill notes. The piercing noise cut through the icy air, and carried all the way to the palace landing stage, where it woke the bargee who had been sleeping fitfully in his freezing bunk on board the royal barge, his porthole wide open just in case of such a summons. But it was not only the royal bargee that the whistle summoned. In the shadows of the landing stage the night Uller was crouching, waiting for his mistress to find him. As Ethelderda's whistle shrieked, so did Uller's ears hurt. Almost deafened with pain, the panther sprang out of the night and knocked the whistle from Ethelderda's lips. The queen screamed out in surprise. The Aye-Aye unwound its tail from Jenna's neck, and leaped to its mistress's aid, leaving Jenna free to wrench herself from the queen's clutches, and throw herself clear of the edge of the water. As Ethelderda slipped on the icy landing stage, her crown toppled from her head, and she fell into the river with a surprisingly small, neat splash. There were no more screams, no more shrieks, and in a moment she had disappeared below the water, with nothing but a few black bubbles rising to the surface to show where she had fallen. The Aye-Aye, chattering with fear, skittered away into the darkness, and the last Jenna heard of it was a few stones dislodged from the wall as it climbed to freedom. Very carefully, Jenna crept to the edge of the landing stage and peered into the water's depths. It seemed impossible that Queen Ethelderda could disappear so thoroughly and with such little fuss. She looked behind to check that Ethelderda was not creeping up and about to push her in, but there was nothing there. She was safe. As the sun rose above a small line of pink clouds on the low horizon above the farmlands, Jenna yawned, tired, cold, and suddenly remembering that even though she was safe from the murderous Ethelderda, she was still 500 years away from home. "Come, Uller," said Jenna, as she had heard Snorri do. She turned away from the sunrise, and to her surprise, there was no sign of the panther anywhere. Thinking that he must have padded back up the tunnel, Jenna turned wearily into the tunnel entrance to retrace her steps back to the chamber, for where else could she go? Meow, meow. A strange orange cat with a black-tipped tail rubbed itself against Jenna's leg. "Hello, puss," said Jenna, bending down to stroke the cat. "How did you get here?" "Meow." The cat seemed a little impatient with her. "Meow." And then Jenna remembered. "Uller," she murmured. "Meow," responded Uller. The orange cat set off back up the dark and slippery tunnel. Tired and cold, Jenna trudged after him. As Jenna left the landing stage, the royal barge, with 8 sleepy oarsmen creaking at their places, and the frozen bargee, teeth chattering, and hands sticking to the ice on the tiller, rounded the bend. The barge was a beautiful sight in the winter's dawn. Candles hastily lit and burning bright at the portholes, the royal red canopy moving gently with the motion of the barge. and the swirls of golden paintwork glittering in the long, low rays of the rising winter sun. Inside the cabin, a table was set with a jug of hot mulled wine and a plate of savory biscuits. Around the table were comfortable seats covered in royal red rugs and cushions. In the middle of the cabin, a small stove was glowing with a blaze of seasoned apple logs and aromatic herbs, which filled the cabin with a warming and welcoming fragrance. But there was no one left to welcome aboard. As the royal barge drew up to the deserted landing stage, the bargee and the oarsman had no idea that far below the keel, weighed down by her great black skirts, the body of Queen Etheldrada floated a few inches above the muddy bottom of the river.